I'm going to show you a miracle you probably have never noticed before. Divine arrangement of verse in the Quran. It's such a clear and obvious miracle that all you need is to see it with your eyes. Millions of people have read and memorized the Quran, but for centuries no one noticed these hidden visual patterns in these 3 copies. Today we will show how the Quran is a miracle, not just in its message, but also in its pages, its lines, its words, and even in its letters. Have you ever seen a book where across dozens of pages every line starts with the same letter? In this mushaf, every line begins with the same letter. Just think about it. Every page has the same number of lines, every line is the same length, and every one of them starts with that same letter. Or in this copy of the Quran, there is a symmetrical pattern that appears on every page. The first and last lines begin with the same letter. The second line and the second to last line also start with the same letter. The third from the top and the third from the bottom, the same again. Every single line follows this rule, and we see the same miracle repeating on every page. Now, this copy you are seeing might be the most interesting of them all. Today, we are going to have a fascinating visual journey that will increase your Iman to a whole new level. Hafiz Osman Nuri was a calligrapher who lived in the late 1800s and wrote the entire Quran by hand 106 times. Yes, 106 times. But the greatest legacy he left behind was not just the mushafs he wrote. It was the writing style and page structure that are now accepted across the world. One day, while copying the Quran once again, he asked himself a question. What is the best way to write the Quran? At that time, he had no idea that he was about to discover a miracle. Sometime later, Allah inspired his heart with an idea. He was going to write a mushaf using the Quran's own measurements. To determine the length of each line, he used the shortest surah, Surah al-Kahf, as the reference, and decided to make every line the same length as that surah. For the length of a page, he chose the longest ayah, ayatul mudayana, so every page would be the length of that ayah, which filled an entire page. But when he started writing, he couldn't believe how perfectly the verse fell into place. He was amazed by what he saw. Every page started with a complete verse and ended with the conclusion of another. No verse was ever split between pages. Each one ended exactly at the bottom of the page. And the entire Quran continued in this way, 600 pages. Isn't it strange that Allah placed the key to writing it perfectly right inside the Quran itself? Everyone who saw it was amazed, and soon this writing style began to spread across the Islamic world. Now imagine this. We gather every book ever written and upload all of them into a computer. Then we ask AI to rewrite each one, but using the shortest paragraph as the standard for a line and the longest paragraph as the size of a page. Do you think even one of those books could match the perfect layout of the Quran? I really don't think so. This proves once again that the Quran is the word of Allah. Because its structure is so precise, it will be impossible for a human to design it intentionally. On top of that, Prophet ﷺ was unlettered. He was not able to read or write. And what's even more interesting is this. The verses and surahs of the Quran were revealed over a period of 23 years, in response to different events and always at specific moments, not all at once. What's even more surprising is that the order in which the surahs were revealed is completely different from the order Prophet ﷺ taught his companions. So if he couldn't have planned this structure himself, and we've never seen anything like it in any other book, then it's very clear. This is a miracle. Afterwards, the great tafsir scholar Bediüzzaman discovered more hidden secrets in the same copy in 1932. He noticed that keywords like the names Allah, Rabb, Rahman, and the names of prophets, along with other important terms, aligned in ways that couldn't possibly be random. Some appeared one below the other on the same page, just like beads on a fiber. Some align perfectly on top of each other when you bring two facing pages together. Others matched perfectly on both sides of the page. So he wanted to have a Quran written in a way that would clearly highlight these alignments. And what emerged was the divine alignment of the Quran. Shall we take a closer look? Let's go to page 48. Look at how the word Rabb, meaning master, that refers to Allah, lines up perfectly 5 times in a row. Now let's move on to pages 62 and 63. Look at the placement of the word Allah 9 times on page 62. What an amazing pattern. And on the opposite page, it happens again. All 9 of them perfectly placed one below the other. As we keep flipping the pages, we will keep seeing this vertical alignment, the divine alignment all throughout the Quran. Let's go to page 259. Look at how the word Rabb appears, placed one top of the other on the same page 9 times in total. Something very interesting is waiting for us on pages 82 and 83. Look at how the word Allah is repeated 4 times on both sides and how perfectly they match across the facing pages. Isn't that incredible? Another kind of the divine alignment appears between the front and back of a single sheet of the Quran. Let's take a look at the sheet that contains pages 33 and 34. On the sheet that includes pages 289 and 290, the word Quran aligns perfectly back to back, as you can see. There are many more examples like this. I'm just showing a few. Now, you are about to see something completely unexpected. Page 422. Let me take you to the page where the name Allah appears more than anywhere else. On this page, the word Allah appears 15 times in perfect alignment. Out of all 604 pages of the Quran, this one contains the highest number of the word Allah. And do you know which ayah begins on the third line from the bottom? Ya eyyuhalladhina amanu dhkurullaha dhikran kathira. O you who have believed, remember Allah with much remembrance. So, while Allah commands us to remember Him often, He mentions His name more than any other page. And this plays a visual miracle through the divine alignment. According to Bediüzzaman, who discovered this miracle, the word Allah appears 2,806 times in the Quran. And in nearly all of them, we see divine alignment. Also, the word Rabb appears 846 times, the name Rahim 220 times, and the name Rahman 156 times. And in many of them, we see the same kind of divine alignment again. Another set of words that align like this are the names of prophets. For example, on page 327, we see the names of Sulayman and Dawood alayhi salam. Wa Sulayman, Sulayman, wa Sulayman. By the way, wa means in the Arabic and also Dawood and Dawood. As you can see, the names are lined up one below the other. On page 449, we see the names of prophets Ishaq, Musa and Harun alayhi salam. As you can see, Musa, Harun and Harun. Ishaq and Ishaq. As you can see, each of them are mentioned twice, and all 3 names appear vertically arranged. On page 19, the name Ibrahim alayhi salam appears 3 times in a row, perfectly aligned. As you can see, Ibrahim, and again Ibrahim. On page 235, the name Yusuf appears 4 times, and of course, again, one below the other. As you see, all 4 aligned perfectly. Yusuf, and again Yusuf. If I ask you one of Yusuf alayhi salam's most well-known qualities, what would you say? His beauty, right? That's one of the qualities we mentioned the most. Let's go to page 235. You see the word Yusuf on the 6th line. Now, let's turn the page and see which word it lines up with on the back. As you can see, it says Jamil, meaning beautiful. Isn't that strange? We are talking about a book that was revealed over 23 years in response to different events. Sometimes it was revealed as a direct answer to a question or a situation. So if someone were to claim that, ma'adallah, the Prophet designed this, he wouldn't even have had the time to plan it. Just read about his life and you'll understand what I mean. Sometimes the verses were revealed in response to people's exact words or to specific incidents. Just think, if that person hadn't said that sentence or hadn't said it in that exact way, the entire structure we've been showing would fall apart. A person can choose what he says, but he cannot control what someone else says. And he definitely cannot control what events he will go through. The only possible explanation is this. These are the words of Allah, whose knowledge surrounds everything. Past, present, and future. Let's go back to the last example. The verse Yusuf and Jamil, which means beautiful. So besides the divine alignment we've seen so far in the Quran, there's also this special kind of alignment. Now, let's go to a different type of alignment that will amaze you again. Have you ever heard the famous dog of Ashab al-Kahf? Its name was Qitmir. Let's go to the page where their story is told. Page 294. At the end of the 7th line, it says وَكَلْبُهُمْ, which means and their dog. What was the name of this dog? Qitmir, right? Now, let's start flipping through the pages. How far do we go? 1 page, 2, 10, 20, exactly 141 pages forward. And what do we find at the beginning of 7th line? Qitmir. one word was at the end of the 7th line and the other at the beginning. But if you look at the Quran while it's closed, these two verses, despite being over 100 pages apart, align perfectly on the same horizontal line. Now think about it. If even one of the events described over those 140 pages had happened differently, or if they were told in another way, if the sentence structures had changed, if those parts were left out, or if other things were told instead, this alignment would be lost. Out of countless possibilities, this is the version that came to be. A book full of deep meanings and at the same time filled with hundreds of divine alignments. It's beyond comprehension. Now, do you see why no one can produce an equivalent of the Quran? Of course, this is not the main reason, but even this one unique feature could never be matched. Let's go back to Ashab al-Kahf and page 294. When they finally woke up from their famous sleep, they tried to figure out how long they had been there. In the 11th line, one of them said, لَبِثْنَا يَوْمًا أَوْ بَعْضَ يَوْمٍ. We have stayed a day or part of a day. While they were trying to figure it out, look at the same line on the opposite page. It's as if Allah is answering them directly. وَلَبِثُوا فِي كَهْفِهِمْ 300 سِنِينَ وَازْدَادُوا تِسْعًا. They remained in their cave for 300 years and they added 9 more. Another kind of these visual miracles is when two verses with similar meanings appear in alignment, even though dozens of pages lie between them. For example, at the beginning of page 342, we read, وَأَنزَلَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً بِقَدَرٍ. And we've sent down rain from the sky in a measured amount. Exactly 147 pages later, at the start of the page 489, it says, وَالَّذِي نَزَّلَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً بِقَدَرٍ. And who sends down rain from the sky in measured amounts. As you see, they have almost the same meaning and they align perfectly on the top of the page. And again, if you look at the 4th line on both page 71 and 511, you'll see sentences that are almost identical starting at the exact same spot. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. يَقُولُونَ بِأَفَّاهِهِمْ مَا لَيْسَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ. And on the other, يَقُولُونَ بِأَلْسِنَتِهِمْ مَا لَيْسَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ. And saying with their tongues what was not in their hearts. Despite the 440 pages in between. We notice the same pattern again when we compare pages 112 and 286. On the 4th line from the bottom, we read, وَابْتَغُوا إِلَيْهِ الْوَسِيلَةَ. And seek the means of nearness to him. Now look at the other page. Estaizu billah, يَبْتَغُونَ إِلَى رَبِّهِمُ الْوَسِيلَةَ. They seek means of nearness to their Lord. Now pages 219 and 415. On the 3rd lines of both pages, the verses begin with nearly the same words. Estaizu billah, وَلَوْ شَاءَ رَبُّكَ لَآمَنَ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ كُلُّهُمْ جَمِيعًا. And had your Lord willed, those on earth would have believed. The verses on the 3rd lines of both pages have nearly the same meaning. Estaizu billah, وَلَوْ شِئْنَا لَآتَيْنَا كُلَّ نَفْسٍ هُدَاهَا. And if we had willed, we could have given every soul its guidance. Just like these verses say, Allah does not need people to believe. In fact, we are the ones who need belief. If He had willed, He could have expected belief from us without giving a single clear proof. Yet, He still shows us countless signs just like these, so that we might believe and save our eternal lives. The copy of the Quran we've been talking about is actually one of 3 major divinely aligned Qurans. As I mentioned earlier, there are 2 more, each with their own uniqueness. But because they haven't been studied in detail like this one, we still don't know what other wonders they contain, or how many more divinely aligned Qurans might still be out there waiting to be discovered. Let's take a quick look at how one of them was written. Another scholar from the Ottoman era, Hafiz Hunsari, he once saw the Prophet ﷺ in his dream. Until that time, he also had been writing the Quran by hand. In the dream, he told the Prophet ﷺ about his work and asked for a kind of spiritual gift. The Prophet accepted this request and showed him how the Quran could be written in a different way. Following his instructions, he wrote every page with exactly 11 lines, and the result was amazing. The first letters of the lines on each page follow the perfect pattern. For example, the first line begins with the letter Fa, and the last line also begins with the same letter, Fa. The second line starts with Alif, and the second line from the bottom also starts with Alif. The third line and the third from the bottom, again, same, Lam, Lam. The 4th line also begins with Lam, and the 4th from the bottom begins with Lam as well. The 5th line starts with Alif, and so does the 5th line from the bottom, Alif. This symmetry continues throughout the entire Quran, page after page, line after line. No matter which page you go to, you will see the same symmetrical pattern. The 3rd divinely aligned copy of the Quran comes to us from Lahore, Pakistan. It's known as Qur'an Majeed Alfi. It took 12 years to complete, and during that time, the scholar who wrote it fasted continuously. Each page has 21 lines, and as you can see, every line starts with the letter Alif. No matter which page you go to, it's the same. The entire Musaf contains 221 pages. Just like the Musaf written in Hafiz Hunsari style, the unique design of this Musaf cannot be found in any other book. And as you see, Allah made His word compatible with all three of these incredible visual structures, leaving no room for doubt. But what if I told you this is not all? Now I'm going to show you a miracle that takes this visual beauty to a whole new level. Even the number of repetition of certain words in the Quran reveals a miracle. For example, the word yawm, meaning day, appears exactly 365 times, clearly pointing to the number of days in a year. The word shahr, meaning month, appears exactly 12 times, just like the number of months in a year. The word melek, meaning angel, and its opposite shaitan, meaning the devil, both appear 88 times. By the way, you can verify these with AI. The numbers are exactly the same. Jannah, paradise, and Jahannam, hell, both appear 77 times. Rajul, man, and Imra'ah, woman, each appear 24 times. Another example. The Quran says, indeed the example of Jesus in the sight of Allah is like that of Adam. This verse refers to the fact that both were created without a father, unlike other human beings. Interestingly, both names, Jesus and Adam, appear 24 times throughout the Quran. They are mentioned an equal number of times. Now, let me give you a completely different kind of example. The longest surah, Surah al-Baqarah, has 286 verses. Throughout this surah, the word Allah appears 282 times. In addition, the pronoun huve, meaning he, referring to Allah, appears 4 times. Add them together and you get a perfect match. 286, just as the number of verses in this surah. Or take the surah, Surah an-Nisa, al-Maidah, and Surah al-Anam. The total number of verses across these three is 464. And guess what? The name Allah appears exactly 464 times in these three surahs. Now let's look at an even more surprising pattern. Take the following 5 surahs: Surah al-Baqarah, Ali Imran, an-Nisa, al-Maidah, and al-Anam. From chapter 2 to 6. The number of times the name Allah appears in this group is exactly double the amount found in the next 5 surahs: Al-Araf, Al-Anfal, At-Tawbah, Yunus, and Hud. And again it continues. That second group is also exactly double that of the next 5: Yusuf, Rad, Ibrahim, Al-Hijr, and Nahl. These were revealed in different contexts, for different purposes. Yet miraculously they show this pattern. And these are just the ones we know about. Who knows how many other verses might carry similar patterns? Finally, we have to remember this fact. It's simply impossible for any human being to have arranged all these intentionally. Even the Prophet ﷺ never used this as a proof himself. If he had arranged it, surely he would have mentioned it. But these were discovered centuries later. And besides all this, the content of the Quran is unlike any other book. It gives us a strong system of belief, tells stories of prophets filled with wisdom, teaches us how to view events of life with a deeper perspective, and speaks about the afterlife, paradise and hell, reward and punishment. Sometimes it explores the depths of history, other times it speaks of events yet to come. It solves philosophical problems no thinker has ever resolved. It teaches how to be an ideal parent, gives golden principles for business, offers insights related to the medical field, and displays unmatched excellence in eloquence and literature. It gives powerful advice in law, addresses matters of science, and shares valuable lessons in education and sociology. And that's still not the full list. At most, a person can specialize in just 1 or 2 of these areas, but the Quran covers all of them and delivers its message with a structure full of miraculous symmetry. In its lines, there's mathematics. In its words, there's wisdom. In its sentences, there's art. In its verses, there's knowledge. And in its message, there is eternity. This is a divine book that came down from the heavens, guiding every aspect of life. So for a generation that says, I won't believe unless I see it with my own eyes, isn't this a miracle clear enough?